Recycle your cardboard egg cartons. This one held 18 eggs. Get a bowl and start tearing it apart into pieces. Once you have the egg carton all torn apart, you'll want to cover it completely with some warm water. Set the bowl aside and let it sit and absorb the water for an hour or more. Once it has absorbed the water, put it into a colander and drain out the water, and then put all of your bits into a piece of cloth and wring out the water. Now that you've squeezed all the water out, it's time to chop it up. You can put it in a food processor or a blender. I put mine in a food processor and I just pulsed it and checked on it till it was about like this. Then I grabbed my Rethunk Junk Gunk and I put my paper back into a bowl, and you can put a half to 3/4 of a jar of it into your paper. Just depends on how much paper you've got in there. I mixed it up with a spatula, or you can get your hands in there and do it that way. I formed it into a ball shape, and then I found the bowl I wanted to use and covered it with saran wrap. I tore off pieces of my paper clay and I formed it onto the bowl. Now I will tell you, you need to be patient with the drying part because it takes 3 or 4 days to fully dry. It took a little prying, but I did get my bowl off of the bowl that I had placed it on top of, and it's nice and hard. Now I want to put a little trim around the top of it. And these are my 3 trim molds from Iron Orchid Design, and I was trying to decide which one I wanted to use. But in the end, I went with the rope trim, and I actually kind of doubled it up. I put it on the outside, and then I put it on the inside, and then I connected the 2 pieces together. So when I'm using my Iron Orchid Design molds with air dry clay, which is what I'm using for this project, I want to lightly dust my mold with some cornstarch. This helps it to release better. I like to take my clay and warm it up in my hand by rolling it in a ball. And for this piece, because it is a long piece, then I'm going to roll it out like a Tootsie Roll shape and lay it into my mold. A tip is that when you're using air dry clay, try to use one continuous piece for your casting. If you piece your clay together, your mold is going to be more likely when it's drying to separate and crack and give you some issues. So if you can use one continuous piece, that is best practice. So I've got my mold in here, and you can see how the micro rim is just trimming it up so beautifully for me, and you want to get your nice and flat on the outside until you can just see the absolute shape and form of the mold. Now to unmold it, I am going to turn it over and I'm going to let the mold do the work for me, and I'm just going to roll the mold back. You don't have to worry about the mold breaking or splitting or cracking. These silicone molds are very, very flexible. Now I have my really cool rope-shaped piece of clay that I'm going to put around the edge of my bowl. I'm going to use my favorite Type On Quick and Thick glue and make sure that I get it around to all of the edges. Now, I will admit that the edges of my bowl and the shape of my bowl, it was a little bit wonky, and I tried trimming that, but that didn't really work so well, so I just sort of covered it with my air dry clay, and I'm making sure that all of my edges are really tight against my bowl. When you go to use the bowl, I'm going to fill it with something. I don't know what, maybe put a floral arrangement in it, fill it with pretty baubles for the holidays. I haven't decided yet, but you can kind of cover up that wonkiness with the air dry clay, and then you can turn your bowl so that the nicest side is facing the front. Now I've got my trim all around the top of it, and like I said, I put 2 rounds, one on the outside, one on the inside, and then had a meat in the middle. So to close up that seam where the 2 came together, I just dipped my finger in the water and wet the clay and kind of pulled the mold together and covered up, let the the water helps the clay to meld together so that you don't really see that seam, and that worked really well. So that's what I did around the top. And once I get that all complete, I'm going to let that dry overnight, the air dry clay. And then it is time to paint my bowl. I'm painting the outside with a base color, and then I'm going to be painting it with the new Rethumbed Junk by Laura color, cobalt blue on the outside. I did Mysterious Forest on the inside and Classic Gold on the outside. So with your holiday baking, don't throw away those cardboard egg cartons, because you can make your own paper clay. And by the way, I tried this paper clay inside my IOD molds, and it worked beautifully. Again, you just have to be a little patient with the dry time, but it works. Such a fun project to do with the children, with the grandchildren, or just for yourself. Give it a try. Make some paper clay, recycle those egg cartons.